have a really great presentation today from the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership, their RAMP initiative, their Regional Advanced Manufacturing Partnership initiative. This initiative has been going on for some time now, but this is going to be really good information for manufacturers. A lot of it centered around Boeing and the decline of the manufacturing for the F-15 and F-A-18, and what the manufacturers that are supplying the Boeing and the sub-manufacturers can do to pivot them into other industries so that they remain successful. So we have two great speakers today from the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership. The first is John Dixon. John serves as the President of Advanced Manufacturing for the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership. John provides executive leadership in the area of defense business and defense worker retention and transition. The partnership is working to dramatically expand the advanced manufacturing ecosystem for the St. Louis region. So when you think of the startup ecosystem that we're seeing with areas like T-Rex and Cambridge Innovation Center, it's the same initiative for manufacturing. John believes St. Louis has earned its place in history as the gateway to the West and the gateway to aerospace, and should rightfully be the gateway to global advanced manufacturing. Also today is Brian Lane. As project manager for advanced manufacturing with the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership, Brian Lane manages the organization's Defense Industry Adjustment Federal Grant awarded from the Department of Defense Office of Economic Adjustment, aimed at reducing the region's dependency on defense spending through the development of an interconnected advanced manufacturing ecosystem. As a former reluctant St. Louis transplant, Brian is focused on changing the domestic and global reputation of St. Louis to highlight the abundance of amenities available to business and families. So it's going to be a good presentation, good information. Please take notes, and I would like to introduce you to John Dixon.
It'll be a challenge to live up to Tom's build-up. First off, let me tell you a little bit about the partnership. In 2013, Mayor Slade and then Executive Charlie Dooley formed the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership to create a regional approach to competing for economic development throughout the region. Then, in 2014, the Department of Defense, through its Office of Economic Adjustment, awarded a grant to the partnership to study the defense industry adjustment that was coming with the then pending end of F-15 and F-A-18 contracts. The OEA has been around since about 1960 or 61. It was formed by Robert McNamara when he was Secretary of Defense. And the idea was that changes in defense budgets have dramatic effects on individual businesses, but also on regions as those defense dollars swell and then recede. So OEA's been at this for quite a while, and their particular partnership with the St. Louis area really developed in the early 90s with the fall of the Berlin Wall in '89. St. Louis went through another enormous downturn in defense dollars. I see some folks here who've been through some of that stuff. So at that time, OEA awarded a grant to then St. Louis County Economic Council to prepare a Defense Industry Adjustment Act. And out of that came a few things. The incubator system that you all know pretty well now, a lot of the T-Rex, Cortex, a lot of that stuff kind of grew out of that. BioSTL, the early stages of that were in that early 90s Defense Industry Adjustment effort. So OEA and the St. Louis region have a pretty strong relationship. So this is going to illustrate to you the significance of defense. I need to make sure that you all understand our effort at the partnership is really centered on defense. At this point, our grant from the OEA restricts us to looking at defense. But the idea at the OEA and with the partnership is that once we pass through this initial stage, that we will create some plans that can be implemented throughout the region. The region is the St. Louis, Missouri, Illinois MSA, so that's the 7 associated at that level, you begin to understand how important Boeing is to the defense economy of the region. And that, I may not need this. Do I need this at all? No?
It does help.
It does help? All right. So I'm adding, again, you can see throughout the state, and St. Louis City and County clearly are the preponderance of the defense dollars, and that clearly is Boeing. So we've got that. Now here's Illinois, because our effort also involves the Illinois site. And I want you to think back to the slide or two ago, and the largest defense contractor in the state of Illinois, Huntington Ingalls, at $650 million. And that's a big difference between that and $6.9 billion. Also, the $431 per resident for the state of Illinois, contrast that with $1,800 per resident in the state of Missouri. So you begin to understand how much defense money means to Missouri throughout the state and to this region in particular. Again, then you can see Cook County. You think Chicago, and you think, well, that ought to be a big deal. Cook County, St. Clair County, they total $2.5 billion. St. Louis City and County is $8.2 billion. Again, we're just trying to illustrate the significance of the money and how much that matters. Now, this grant that we're working on was awarded in 2014, and at that time, the end of the C-17, the F-15, and the FA-18 were all scheduled to end, as you can see, somewhere around FY-16, FY-17. That was expected to be the end, and obviously, you all are probably aware, but if not, it's the F-35, the Joint Strike Fighter, that is the replacement for this 40 or 50-year-old airframe system. So they've been extended. They now are expected to run out through the 2020s or something like that. But again, those are old airplane designs. They will be replaced by something, most likely the F-35, but they will end. Now, Boeing, to its credit, and everyone ought to stand up and give them a standing ovation, they fight vigorously for every order they can get, including foreign military sales. So those guys are good guys, and they're out there working their tails off every day to make sure that line keeps going. But the reality is, the United States military has made a choice to go with an F-35, and that's not a choice that's easily undone. It won't be undone. If it's not the F-35, it'll be something else. So what does that mean? So that means our region has a rich history in advanced manufacturing, heavily driven by automotive and aerospace. So that puts us out on the leading edge of a lot of stuff, and there's this whole infrastructure throughout the region. Many of you here are making pretty sophisticated stuff, using pretty sophisticated materials, pretty sophisticated processes, and so there's this rich system throughout the region of pretty sophisticated folks. And the advantage of that is manufacturing carries with it much greater economic multipliers than any other industry sector. So every dollar's in final sales, $1.48, you can read the numbers. But the message there is that advanced manufacturing is absolutely important because of the multiplier effect that it has on any regional economy. So here you see some manufacturing trends. At the same time that the United States is going through adjustments in its defense posture, the world is going through enormous changes in manufacturing. So here you see, you may not read a lot about the defense industry or the manufacturing industry changes in the newspaper because as the manufacturing jobs go down, the average wages for what manufacturing remains goes up. This is not unique to our region. It is happening in manufacturing all around the globe. So what you see is tradable jobs move to lower labor spots, and non-tradable jobs tend to be those that have much higher here's how I think all of you look at that issue. I don't think there's a single one of you, if you're here, stand up when I finish this question. How many of you would like to double your business by doubling your employee headcount? I think what you'd rather do is double your business with the same headcount you have now or fewer. And that's what's happening around the globe. Everybody loves the people that work for them. That's the greatest asset the company has. But we don't need any more of it. It's like my father-in-law used to say, I have 3 kids. It wouldn't take $1 million for any of them, and wouldn't give you a plug nickel for another one. I think that's the way we are with our employees. We love everyone we have, but we don't need any more. So, this is agriculture. And here's a photograph I dug out. And I'll pass it around if anybody wants to see it. But it's a young guy standing in front of a team of horses. And I pulled this out because this photograph was taken about 1930. This young guy was like all of these young guys in 1930. Successful farmer operation. Young kid, growing up on a farm, very successful farm. And that's going to happen in manufacturing. It's already started. And the only real difference is that the time window is much collapsed because of the rapid pace of advances in technology. Our output in manufacturing, particularly in the United States, I believe, is going to grow far beyond anything anybody here can imagine. And I believe the headcount is going to diminish far below anything anyone anticipates. This young man, by the way, this is not so long ago, that's my father. At age 11, 522-acre farm, and he thought that was what he was going to do for the rest of his life. So if you've got kids or grandkids coming up in your business or following your profession, you need to make sure they understand that what they're doing for the rest of their life is going to change, and it's going to change a lot. It's all good. It's all good. My dad's standard of living at the end of his life was so far superior to that there's just no description. He carried water. They lived in a nice house. They were successful farmers. He carried water. So the point of it is the standard of living for the country, and it's going to improve dramatically. So what are we doing relative to advanced manufacturing? I think this is what we're doing. If that person on the ladder is manufacturing community, then the whole community's got to move up the ladder for any of us to move up the ladder very far. So the hands can't get too far ahead of the feet. The feet can't get up as high as the hands are. So wherever you are on the manufacturing scale, in the first place, I believe that if you're in business today, manufacturing something, you're pretty advanced because the other guys don't exist anymore. But if you want to move up the ladder, the whole region's got to move up the ladder. So when we think about advanced manufacturing and what we intend to do to try to help the region, we intend to help everyone move on up the ladder. So the project, again, what we've talked about quite a bit, has some very specific intents. And here's another way I think you can think about those. We need to help find new customers. We need to help attract more capital. We need to develop an effective model for business transition. We need to be in a position to help businesses that want to fundamentally change their business to become more lean, to attract new customers. Fundamentally change their business. We need to find a model to help them do that. And we need to encourage the complete ecosystem of advanced manufacturing. Now, for some more details and a little bit broader view of that, I'd like to introduce my friend and colleague, Brian Lane.
started by defining the region. We didn't want to be focused on St. Louis City or St. Louis County. OEA has shown through their experience, and we see the value in the region as a whole growing. And if the region as a whole is able to grow, then it benefits everybody. That becomes even more apparent when you look at defense contractors and manufacturers and where they're located. So this isn't giving away anybody's position. This is by zip code, but you can see that really it touches all the counties in the region. So what does St. Louis have to its benefit? We've got 9 Fortune 500 multinational corporations, 19 in the Fortune 1000. We've got 7 of America's largest private companies. Now that's a big resource because they've done a lot of paving the way for international trade, international compliance, international partnerships, and those are all things we can take advantage of. We have manufacturing that may not be headquartered here, but comes through here. So again, major multinational corporations, Nike, Emerson, ABM, some headquartered here, some not, but the manufacturing is done here. So that's technology, that's processes, that's knowledge that we can take advantage of. We have state-of-the-art educational, globally recognized educational institutions that are doing cutting-edge research and development. Those are all resources for commercialization of new technology and new products. We have committed workforce development and training. So Southwestern Illinois College, Rankin, Lewis and Clark. We have North and South County Technical Schools. new product line that has become available because of new technology, like 3D printing or something like that. So we come back to the need to focus on aerospace. Aerospace is a lot of jobs in the first tier, but it also has a major supply chain that creates a lot of jobs. This chart shows by NAICS code kind of the supply chain to second platform is focused on business assistance. So while a lot of businesses are focused day to day on making payroll, finding new customers, or keeping their doors open, we think there's an opportunity for us to help in doing some business development, some emerging market research, some export assistance research. And so we're working to start a prototype platform to put businesses through a program this is a real initiative. There's real money behind it. It's an act that's been signed into law, so it's not just talk. There's actual money to fund it, and it's big money. So the federal portion is $70 million, and the private match is 1-to-1. So there's a private match of $70 million
That's per institute.
per instance. Correct. So there's currently 8 of them. Youngstown, Ohio has, there's currently 8 of them. Each of them has to have a industry focus or a technology focus. So the first one was built in Youngstown, Ohio with a focus on 3D printing, also called additive manufacturing. The second one in Chicago, Illinois was built on digital software for logistics and design. Detroit has a program focused on lightweight metals and lightweight materials. Raleigh, North Carolina, the heart of Research Triangle Park, is focused on wide gap semiconductors. Knoxville, Tennessee is focused on composites. Rochester, New York is focused on integrated circuits. San Jose is focused on hybrid electronics, and then Cambridge is focused on functional fabrics. These are fabrics that can sense temperature, sweat, and they can do all kinds of stuff when they sense that. They can help cool, they can help heat. There's a really fascinating innovation curve in clothes that we wear. The purpose of showing these is where they're located and what they're working on, and the importance for St. Louis to be in that conversation, and the resources we have to compete and be in that conversation. So, Tom and John talked about the Regional Advanced Manufacturing Partnership. This is a grant group that we formed with partners across the region to help grow and focus on
know what